Yo, so is civilization on the brink of collapse? Yeah, yeah, I it could be so.
At its height, the Roman Empire was home to about 30% of the world's population, and in many ways, it was the pinnacle of human advancement. Its
Okay.
citizens enjoyed the benefits of central heating, concrete, double glazing, banking, international trade, and upward social mobility. Rome
Okay.
became the first city in history with 1 million inhabitants and was a center of technological, legal, and economic progress. An empire impossible to topple, stable and rich and powerful. Until it wasn't anymore.
And what
First
happened?
slowly, then suddenly, the most powerful civilization on Earth collapsed. By civilization, we mean a complex society where labor is specialized and social classes emerge and which is ruled by institutions.
Okay.
Civilizations share a dominant mutual language and culture and domesticate plants and animals to feed and sustain large cities where they often construct impressive monuments.
True.
Civilization lets us become efficient on large scales, collect vast amounts of knowledge, and put human ingenuity and the natural resources of the world to work. Without civilization, most people would never have been born, which makes it a bit concerning that collapse is the rule, not the exception. Virtually all civilizations end, on average, after 340 years. Collapse
Really?
is rarely nice for individuals. Their shared cultural identity is shattered as institutions lose the power to organize people. Knowledge is lost, living standards fall, violence increases, and often the population declines. The civilization either completely disappears, is absorbed by stronger neighbors, or something new emerges, sometimes with more primitive technology than before. If this is how it's been over the ages, what about us today?
That is the question. With the internet and everything just kind of like jumbling
Just
all
as
us up.
Europeans forgot how to build indoor plumbing and make cement, will we lose our industrial technology? And with that, our greatest achievements from $1 pizza to smartphones or laser eye surgery? Will all this go away too?
Yeah.
Today, our cities stretch for thousands of square kilometers. We travel the skies. Our communication is instant.
Uh,
Industrial agriculture with engineered high-yield plants, efficient machinery and high-potency fertilizer feeds billions of people. Modern medicine gives us the longest lifespan we've ever had, while industrial technology gives us an unprecedented level of comfort and abundance, even though we haven't yet learned to attain them without destroying our ecosphere.
that's what I was about to say. Like,
There are
oh well,
arguably still
there's a
different
yin and yang in
civilizations
there.
around today that compete and coexist with each other, but together they also form a singular global civilization. But this modern globalized civilization is even more vulnerable in some ways than past empires because we are much more deeply interconnected.
Mm-hmm.
A collapse of the industrialized world literally means that the majority of people alive today would perish, since without industrial agriculture, we would no longer be able to feed them. And there's an even greater risk. What if a collapse was so deeply destructive that we were unable to reindustrialize again? What if it
Oof.
ruined our chances of enjoying a flourishing future as a multiplanetary species? A
Ooh.
global
So what could lead to
civilizational
that
collapse could be
other
an
than Elon
existential
Musk?
catastrophe, something that ruins not just the lives of everyone alive today, but all the future generations that could have come into being. All the knowledge we might have discovered, the art we might have created, the joys we might have experienced would be lost. So, how likely is all of this?
Please
Let's start with
talk to
some
me.
good news.
Okay.
While civilization collapses have happened regularly, none have ever derailed the course of global civilization. Rome collapsed, but the Aksumite Empire, or the Teotihuacans, and of course the Byzantine Empire, carried on. What
Yeah,
about
that's true.
sudden population crashes? So far, we've not seen a catastrophe that has killed much more than 10% of the global population. No pandemic, no natural disaster, no war. The last clear example of a rapid global population decrease was the Black Death, a pandemic of the bubonic plague in the 14th century that spread across the Middle East and Europe and killed a third of all Europeans and about 1/10 of the global population.
I mean, that's still
If
crazy to
any
think
event
about.
was going to cause the collapse of civilization, that should have been it. But even the Black Death demonstrates humanity's resilience more than its fragility. While the old societies were massively disrupted in the short term, the intense loss of human lives and suffering did little to negatively impact European economic and technological development in the long run.
Unless it's a zombie
Population
outbreak.
size recovered within 2 centuries,
That's
and
that's
just
my
2
fear.
centuries later, the Industrial Revolution began. History is full of incredible recoveries from horrible tragedies.
Oh,
Take the atomic bombing of Hiroshima during World War II. 140,000 people were killed, and 90% of the city was at least partially incinerated or reduced to rubble. But
that is
against the
so
odds,
crazy.
they made a
That's still like, it boggles me like that we did that to like a whole city, bro. And now we have like, I don't know how many nukes we have around the world now, like probably like hundreds and thousands of them, and all that can cause the equal amount of destruction as this. Like, man, I think we focused our, you know, I think we put our energy into the wrong place here. We shouldn't have focused on military, man. Like, oh, Jesus. But hey, like, I guess protection and whatnot.
remarkable recovery. Hiroshima's population recovered within a decade, and today it's a thriving city of 1.2 million
Really?
people.
What happened with the, isn't it, I thought it would be radioactive and like you wouldn't be able to go around that area. Like, but I don't know nothing about
None of this
nuclear
made
activity
these
and
horrible
whatnot.
events any less horrible for those who lived through them. But for us as a species, these signs of resilience are good news. Wide
Yeah,
recovery
of course.
is likely, even in the worst case.
Talk to me.
One thing that's different from historic collapses is that humanity now has unprecedented destructive power.
Yeah, exactly.
Today's
That's true.
nuclear arsenals are so powerful that all-out global war could cause a nuclear winter and billions of deaths. Our knowledge of our own biology and how to manipulate it is getting so advanced that it's becoming possible to engineer viruses as contagious as the coronavirus and as deadly as Ebola.
Ooh.
Increasingly, the risk of global pandemics is much higher than in the past. So we may cause a collapse ourselves, and it might be much worse than the things nature has thrown at us so far. But
Definitely.
if, say, 99% of the population died, would global civilization collapse forever? Could we recover from such a tragedy? We have some reasons to be optimistic. Let's start with food. There are 1 billion agricultural workers today, so
Okay.
even if the global population fell to just 80 million, it's virtually guaranteed that many survivors would know how to produce food. And we don't need to start at square one, because we could still use modern high-yield crops. Maize is 10 times bigger than its wild ancestor. Ancient tomatoes were the size of today's peas. After agriculture, the
Wow,
next step
I didn't know
towards
that.
recovery would be rebuilding
love tomatoes.
industrial capacity like power grids and automated manufacturing. A huge problem is that our economies of scale make it impossible to just pick up where we left off.
Yeah, it
Many
does.
of our high-tech industries are only functional because of huge demand and intensely interconnected supply chains across different continents. Even if our infrastructure were left unharmed, we would make huge steps backwards technologically. But then again, we are thinking in larger timeframes. Industrialization originally happened 12,000 years after the agricultural revolution. So if we need to start over after a massive collapse, it shouldn't be that hard to reindustrialize, at least on evolutionary timescales. There's a hitch though.
Take
The
us like
Industrial
1,200 years.
Revolution was fueled literally by burning easily accessible coal, and we are still very much reliant on it. If we use it all up today, aside from making rapid climate change much worse, we could hinder our ability to recover from a huge crisis. So we should stop using easy-to-access coal, so it can serve as a civilization insurance in case something bad happens.
Use some solar
Another
panels.
thing that makes recovery likely is that we'd probably have most of the information we need to rebuild civilization.
As long as
would
we have the
certainly
internet.
lose a lot of crucial institutional knowledge, especially on hard drives that nobody could read or operate anymore. But a lot of the technological, scientific, and cultural knowledge stored in the world's 2.6 million libraries would survive the catastrophe. The
That is true.
post-collapse survivors would know what used to be possible, and they could reverse engineer some of the tools and machines they'd find.
Gotta
In
love the
conclusion,
library.
Despite the bleak prospect of catastrophic threats, natural or created by ourselves, there is reason for optimism. Humankind is remarkably resilient, and even in the case of a global civilizational collapse, it seems likely that we would be able to recover, even if many people were to perish or suffer immense hardship,
Well, not as long as
even
we have
if we
TikTok,
lost
man,
cultural
because
and
there's so
technological
much
achievements in the
misinformation on there.
process. But given the stakes, the risks are still unnervingly high. Nuclear war and dangerous pandemics threaten the amazing global civilization we have built. Humanity is like a teenager, speeding around blind corners, drunk without a seatbelt. The good news is that it's still early enough to prepare for and to mitigate these risks. We just need to actually do it.
Oh, easier
We
said than
made this
done.
video
We
together
still
with
have
Will
people that
McCaskill,
believe the Earth is
Professor of
flat.
Philosophy at
We
Oxford
have people
and
that
one of
think,
the founders of the
you know, the
effective
government wants to
altruism
kill you
movement,
off.
which
Well,
is
it could
about
be
doing the
true,
most good
but
you
I don't
can
know.
with your time and money. Will just published a new book called What
What
We
we
Owe
owe
the
the
Future,
future.
which is about how you can positively impact the long-term future of our world. If you like Kurzgesagt videos, the chances are high you'll like it. The book has some pretty counterintuitive arguments, like that risks from new technologies such as AI and synthetic biology are at least as grave as those from climate change, or that the world doesn't contain too many people, but too few, and especially that everyday actions
Too
like
few
recycling
people,
or
huh?
refusing to fly
That's
just aren't
interesting.
that big a deal compared to where you donate or what career you pursue. Most importantly, it argues that by acting wisely, you can help make tomorrow better than today, and how we together can build a flourishing world for the thousands or millions of generations that will come after us. Many things we at
Ugh,
Kurzgesagt talk about
I'm not
regularly
that
are discussed here
optimistic about
in
this no
much greater
more.
detail. Check out What We Owe the Future wherever you get your books or audiobooks.
I might check it out. I have an audiobook. Might go
Did
for a
we
run and
manage
do it.
to unlock a new fear for you? Let's counter existential dread with appreciation for humanity. Look how far we've come as a species,
Yeah,
what
yeah,
we've
yeah.
built, and
We've done
where
good
we've
things.
gathered. Let this new world map poster be a reminder of what we can achieve.
Nice world map. But still, man, I'm still not that optimistic about the future. Just cause like we're still like fighting petty wars over stuff that we can't find the middle ground where we all can be happy. It's just so hard. Everyone's different. Everyone has a different perspective of the way they look at life. And some it's the people in power right now, or they're stuck in their ways. Because it's hard to change once you reach a certain age. You're just stuck in that way. So that sucks.